Spring of 2022, farmers across the developing world opened their supply invoices and couldn't believe what they were reading. The price of potash, the mineral that keeps crops alive, had gone from around $200 a ton to over $560 a ton globally. In parts of Brazil and India, local prices exceeded $1,000 a ton. Across sub-Saharan Africa, smallholder farmers who couldn't get credit simply stopped fertilizing their fields entirely. The UN World Food Program warned that 258 million people across 58 countries were now facing acute food insecurity, up from 193 million just 1 year earlier. The world was staring at a food crisis, and almost nobody was talking about the man who helped cause it. So how did the leader of one of Europe's smallest and most isolated countries end up holding the global food supply hostage, and why is the world still dangerously exposed? To understand this, you need to know about potash. It's a potassium-rich mineral that is irreplaceable in modern fertilizer. Without it, crop yields collapse. And here's the problem. Unlike nitrogen, which can be synthesized from the air, potash has to be physically mined, and the world's deposits are not spread evenly. Canada, Russia, and Belarus together control roughly 70% of total global potash supply, and nearly 77% of all global exports. That extreme concentration makes the global food system deeply vulnerable to decisions made in just 3 capitals. The companies involved, Canada's Canpotex, Russia's Uralki, and Belarus's state-owned Belaruskali, have historically coordinated their export volumes so precisely that industry analysts and the World Economic Forum have openly called them a potash OPEC. And if that wasn't enough of a warning sign, there's one more fact that should keep agricultural ministers awake at night. If the world ever needed to open a new potash mine to replace a disrupted supplier, it would take between 15 and 30 years to bring it online. Which brings us to Alexander Lukashenko. He has ruled Belarus since 1994, making him Europe's longest-serving head of state. In 2020, he claimed victory in a presidential election that the international community widely rejected as fraudulent, triggering massive protests, which he crushed, imprisoning more than 1,200 political opponents and dismantling independent media. Western nations imposed sanctions. Then, in May 2021, Lukashenko went further. He forced a commercial Ryanair flight traveling between Athens and Vilnius to land in Minsk under a false bomb threat so his agents could arrest a journalist on board. The EU, US, UK, and Canada responded by doing something unprecedented. They sanctioned Belarus's potash sector directly. By February 2022, Lithuania had cut off Belarus's primary export route through its port of Klaipėda. Almost overnight, approximately 90% of Belarus's export capacity was compromised. Its production fell by an estimated 50 to 60%. The 20% of global supply that Belarus had been supplying simply disappeared from world markets. The ripple effects were immediate and severe. In Sri Lanka, a government that had already banned chemical fertilizer imports in 2021 saw rice yields collapse by as much as 32% and tea exports fall by nearly 29%, contributing to the worst economic crisis the country had seen in 70 years. Protesters stormed the presidential palace. The president fled the country. And potash is only half the story. Morocco controls approximately 70% of the world's known phosphate reserves, the other essential fertilizer ingredient, through a single state-owned company called OCP Group. In February 2026, the United States officially added phosphate and potash to its critical minerals list, treating them with the same strategic urgency as lithium. We have spent decades worrying about energy dependence on authoritarian states, but there is no renewable alternative to phosphorus. There is no solar-powered substitute for potassium. Nearly half of all people alive today, roughly 4 billion people, owe their existence to food grown with synthetic fertilizer. The global food system is not just an agricultural challenge, it's a geopolitical one. And right now, a handful of governments know exactly how much leverage that gives them. That's the story almost no one is telling. Subscribe to Epoch Atlas. We cover the geopolitics that actually shapes your world.